Hi, good morning everyone. Today we will understand API in detail with practical demo. What is an API? API stands for Application Programming Interface that allows communication between two different applications. As you can see here, application A needs to connect to application B. So application A does not needs to rebuild entire application B. They just connects to the application B's API, sends the request and receives the response. That saves a lot of time of developers. API is sort of an URL. And in REST API, if you see, let's say for example, api.bank.com. This is a particular API. After that, you can put slash in the URL, accounts, users, transactions. That becomes different APIs. If you need to connect and retrieve users information, you can rename it to slash users or transactions and so on. And there are a lot of HTTP methods that you operate on particular API. For example, get method, post method, put, delete, and so on. Get allows to retrieve the data. Post allows you to post anything on the website or URL. Put allows you to update a particular resource. Delete allows you to entirely delete a resource. And once you perform the operation, you get different codes, HTTP status codes. Like 200 OK shows that the request was properly sent and was successful. 201 is again for resource, those were created properly using post request. And if you get 400 bad request, that means something is wrong in your request itself. 401 shows that you are not authorized to put or do any sort of activity on a particular API. 404 means you are not hitting the right method or not right API. 500 error shows that the application itself or the server at the backend is causing some issues. You first need to fix that, then you will be able to perform any of the HTTP method on a particular API. And there are two important functions in API. One is path and the other one is query parameter. Let's say if you see in the URL api.bank.com/accounts, after that also if you see there is /101. So this is known as path parameter. You append this 101 or any number that is already, there is already a function in your any Python app, let's say Flask or Fast API. If there is a function to get a user ID, that you can put it in the URL. This is known as path parameter. You don't need to feed every time in your code. Query parameter comes after, let's say after /accounts question mark. Every query parameter starts with question mark. Question mark type equals to saving. Let's say if you want to filter any resource, let's say of type savings, then you can use query parameters. And in API, if you see here, if I'm requesting anything, the response look like this below: JSON file, account type, account holder, and so on. Now, let me show you through code how you can actually see the APIs running on your local machine or local computer. So I have one script which I have already prepared. Before that, I'll show you the Python program. So this programs actually is a running on Flask application. Here I have defined a lot of Python function. This is the one function that is home. It's routing to the home. I'm running a Flask application, and here I have created a lot of Python functions, right? So if you see here, this is slash. If I hit this URL on my Flask application, it should show me that my finance application is running properly. If I need to just check the health of my application, I can just go to this particular URL, and this I have created a get method to retrieve just to test whether my get method is working or not. Similarly, post method. Here I am posting users information, and put method is to just update the particular resource. Just again, one more test country is a function that I have created. Here I am just using integer type user ID that I showed you as a path parameter. So if you append 101 or 1 to anything on in the URL, that would be uh, retrieved through this particular function. This function will be able to retrieve that value automatically. That is known as path query, a path parameter, not the query, path parameter. All right. Now these are the functions that I have already created. Now let me show you the script that I have prepared. So base URL is local machines IP colon 5000, because Flask application runs on port 5000. Here If you see, these are all echo commands just to show the liners and title and all. Then my first command is to check whether the base URL, that is this URL, is functioning or not. If you remember, slash was showing a finance hub is running properly. The second command shows the health. Third command's output would show the get command. The third command is to request I mean, just to run the post method. Here in post method, if you see, we have to provide the content type as the header, which is application slash JSON. And also you can also pass the name, email, all these content headers in the post request. Similarly, if you need to update any data, here I am updating JSON 1 from JSON 1 to Sagar. So that is how we have used the put method. Also, I have created an HTTP request inspector function that is that will provide all the details of the method, URL, headers, query parameters, cookies, whatever is passed in the request. Let me also show you how I have built this inspector, health inspector. So here if you see, I have created a function in Python which retrieves all the information. It works on all the method get, post, put, patch, delete, anything. And this is my URL on which I am able to retrieve all the information. Here I have added REST section where I am requesting all the response from an API. Let's say what is the resource used, HTTP method used, what is the path parameters, query parameters that we discussed, content type. In API, I'm also requesting what API we have sent in the request. As of now, we have not worked on API, so this will come as null. And JWT also I have just implemented, which will come in later videos. And similarly, I see that there is response which shows how this particular information, which is when the client requests the API, how the particular flow is happening. In network also, it shows all the handshake TLS information, client information, what is the client IP, source port that I showed you, host, full URL path that I have added in this particular Python function. Routing, rest, authentication, authorization, response, what is the performance, how long did the script took to run, and after that, once the script executes properly, you will see 200 status. So these are all commands that I have added in my script. Once I run the script, you will see the output and you will understand in a better way. So let me just start the Flask application. It was running earlier. Let me run it for you again. Okay. So let me check the Flask API. Let me refresh this page. Okay. So this is the health inspector that I built that I'll discuss later. But just to confirm whether Flask application is now running, I just check this URL. All right, now I will execute my script that I am showing you with all the 14, 15 commands, all the 13 commands. All right, script executed. Let's go command by command now. So the first command, as you can see here, is a get method on my base URL, which is Flask API. It is running properly, and I can see the response which we feed it in the application function. And the HTTP status also, it says 200 result is pass. The second command, the endpoint was health, and again it is showing healthy because our application is running properly. Here if you see the get command again, get command is working properly. Post method, just to create a new resource, we added the name as JSON1 and email as JSON1 at test.com. So you can see in the response, JSON response, that method worked properly. This email and user is created properly. And as we discussed, 201 is the HTTP status code. If your post request works properly. Now the put method is just to update a particular resource. So here we have updated now the name to Sagar, which we earlier named it as JSON1. Now, if you see this command, which is our inspector, here I have added lot of parameters in the response. Here we are not using any API key that I will discuss in my next videos. So that's why it is showing null. There is no API key present in the code or in the request. Authentication is also not there. Neither we have JSON tokens here. the JWT tokens. I have separate videos that I'll create for these. And we have this business logic, that is everything right now is getting stored in the Python in memory list. Client, you can see this is the local IP of my machine. Destination is the destination port. This is the API basically, slash lab slash request info. This is local API basically on your machine. Or in real world you see google.com slash auth or something like that. So this is what we have created in the particular lab. You can see user agent, which shows this is a curl command through which we are retrieving all the information and hitting the APIs. HTTP version is 1.1, and this is our get method because we are retrieving some information. And source port for my computer's port is 52202, and we have not implemented any GraphQL, which is another API type. And also you can see here in terms of network, we have not performed any networking here as such DNS lookup and all. So that's why it is showing false here. Most of the functions will be false here. And performance wise, when we ran this commands or this script, it started at this time and it just took 0.03 seconds to execute, microseconds. So the overall, what we have done, client initiated HTTP request received by Flask, and then everything got matched, routes and the request, took place, and all the logic that we added in our code has been properly responded back to our client, that is curl command. And the response we got in the JSON format, and 200 was the proper status code. And as you can see here, we didn't apply any SOAP API or WebSocket here, so it is showing false. All right, next command's output is we just tested a user here. So it just showed what is my particular user on this user ID. And test country is another function that I showed you just to query the particular country's name. So we can see the America. And if you want to query lot of particularly, let's say if you want to query lot of things inside as a filter after country, if you want to, let's say, search for any city, Pune, Delhi, Bangalore, anything, you can use and after particular query. So you can see we are just retrieving the query parameters here. So this is all what we tested through the script by adding all the functions in my Python Flask. All right, that was the API. So API is like very important for all the developers. It saves a lot of time. Rather than building entire application, you connect to an API of any application, retrieve the information properly through API, through various HTTP methods, and according to that, you work.